Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers. We're in Jeepies July.
Jinkies,
Jinkies July. Jinkies
Jinkies
July.
July. Oh my gosh.
I'm
Well,
super excited.
I've already had one person email, what's Jinkies? I'm like, if you do not know what Jinkies is, I'm sorry you had a terrible childhood. But
Yes.
Jinkies is the Scooby-Doo equivalent of saying Jeepers Creepers or something scary. I mean, it's Shaggy says zoinks, and most others say Jinkies,
Yeah.
particularly Velma, which
Velma says it all the time, and it's sort of an exclamation of surprise, I would say. That's how I'd phrase it.
yeah, it's just like I said, it's like Jeepers was the old 50s way of saying it, and it just became Jinkies for them. So
Yes.
uh,
And we're always excited for Jinkiesness. Anyway, we are in July, which is exciting, except for we technically missed the 4th. We're recording this before, but it will air the day after the 4th. So hopefully everyone had a very ferociously amazing 4th of July if you celebrate that.
those of you not in the United States, happy Thursday, or as the British call it, Treason Day for us bloody colonials. So you know.
Also, what is the other day we
Oh, the
slightly
second
missed?
was World UFO Day. So we had a lot of people message us about that too. So we did some social media posts for that, and thank you for everybody keeping us honest on that stuff. And I did a recording of Scary Cast on that night with our good friend Dr. John Stamey from our Tulpa expert. So he and
Yeah.
I talked a little Flatwoods Monster.
What
Well,
are we talking about today, Mark?
all right. Well, we're going to do some Wayback Machine stuff because July 1st to July 3rd had several major historic things happen on it over the years, particularly American history. Most notably was the Battle of San Juan Hill and Teddy Roosevelt. But we're not talking about the Rough Riders today. I'm saving them for another day because we are going to do a deep dive on Teddy and his monsters and his ghosts and everything else, just because I'm a huge Teddy Roosevelt nerd. But we have to talk about the other famous battle that happened, the bloodiest battle to happen on American soil, and that is the Battle of Gettysburg. It is considered the most important engagement of the American Civil War.
True,
The
true.
war
So how far back did we go in this Wayback Machine now?
We
Because
are going back to July 1st, 1863.
got it.
We got
Okay.
enough snacks? We got enough.
I think I have sufficient snacks, although Beau is here with us, of course. So she tends to eat a lot of my snacks when we're on these type of things because
Well, I'm
she's
glad
a
we
snack
stopped at
stealer. Just
I'm glad we
saying.
stopped at Bucky's and we got some of those beaver nuggets, so we're good.
Oh, beaver nuggets. You got it. That sounds so inappropriate. We love the beaver nuggets in our mouths. No, just kidding. Okay, moving on. Mark, Wayback Machine,
All
Jinkies,
right.
Gettysburg. Let's go.
So July 1st, 1863, basically after a very great victory over the Union forces at Chancellorsville, General Robert E. Lee decides to march his Army of Northern Virginia into Pennsylvania in late June. So on July 1st, the advancing Confederates kind of clash with the Union's Army of the Potomac, who was commanded by General George Meade. And it's this crossroads town of Gettysburg.
Okay.
And over the next few days is some of even heavier and heavier fighting. And on July 3rd, Lee ordered another attack by about 15,000 troops on the enemy's center at a place called Cemetery Ridge. And this assault, known as Pickett's Charge, they basically pierced the Union line, but ultimately they failed the battle, and it cost thousands and thousands of casualties on all sides. So Lee was forced to withdraw his forces and head back to Virginia by the 4th of July. Now, the Union basically won the major turning point, stopped Lee from invading North, inspires Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, which becomes one of the most famous speeches of all times. There's a lot of history here, and we could go deep dive into all of that, but that's a history podcast. There's plenty of those out there that
Yep.
will tell you
Yep.
everything about the battle. I could go into all of the details on that, but we're not going to do that. We want to talk about when you go visit Gettysburg, because a lot of it just reopened. They just reopened Little Round Top. They just reopened Devil's Den. These are battlefield areas that have just had new monuments built. They've just been restored because it was cracked pavement going up to some of these things. This battlefield is a long time ago, and a lot of people visit it, so it needed some restoration. But if you're listening to our podcast, right,
Yes.
you're here to know where are the spooky places, right? That's what
Yeah,
you're.
the spooky, creepy, everything. Yeah.
Well, are there ghosts around Gettysburg? Well, let's take a second to think about that. How many people died there? Thousands upon thousands upon thousands. How many gunshots were fired there over a 3-day period? Millions, millions. Just put that number in your head. Millions of black powder guns going off over a 3-day period, and shells from cannons, horses, everything going on. And so now we've had all kinds of hauntings reported in this area for generations. Some are visual, some are auditory, some are, even like tactile, right? You can feel them, something touches you, or, something like that.
Which I don't love any of these things. So
Right, right.
places Erica will never go. Gettysburg.
And
Just
some
kidding.
some
I've,
are just
I've,
spells, right?
yeah. I
Phantom
well,
smells.
I've been there. So I will say it's interesting because I know you're going to go into deep dives on this, but this is the type of place where there isn't like an overall overarching feeling when you
That's
go there.
that's
This is
exactly
not,
what I was gonna say. It's just
yeah,
this whole area. It's when I went to Stonehenge in England, it has a very distinct feel when you go to that plane there. You just get that energy. You feel that energy. We have a different feeling here in the Appalachian Mountains that we live in, the Smoky Mountain area. We have a weird energy feeling in this area. You go to St. Augustine, completely different feeling. You go to Key West, there's odd energy in all these places, and they all come from different periods in history. Different things have affected them over the years and the centuries, and all over the world. Go to Rome. Oh my gosh! And there's different areas of Rome. When you walk into the Colosseum, thousands of years of history just hits you in the face. When you go to the Roman Forum, oh my gosh, that was incredible. This is that level. This is as close as we've got in the US, I think. I mean, we've got a few other areas, but this is not ancient history. I mean, we like to think it's ancient history, but this isn't that long ago. And that's the thing, to have that much energy in that short of time, it's still fresh wounds, gang. This is stuff
yeah.
that you can feel and experience. And so that's why we will be telling you which tours that take you to the good places and all that. And we're going to talk about places to stay and places to experience. But I just want to get into that. When you go, maybe 10% of your experience is visual, right?
Yeah.
That you might 10% chance of seeing something unusual. That 40-50% is going to be auditory. You're going to
Yeah.
hear something that doesn't make sense. It could just be a whisper. It could just be a wind going still that shouldn't, when you're watching the trees go around and stuff like that. You might hear marching. You might hear soldiers. And it could be something simple like there's a reenactment going on, because that happens all the time there. It could be actors, could be other things, but you'd be surprised. And then that other 30-40%, like I said, is either tactile, smell, something else from history is reaching out to you. So you don't
Yes.
need the Wayback Machine for this.
No, it's true. My favorite stories are ones like our lovely producer Beau had, where people hear like the marching bands, because there were, well, I don't want to call them marching bands, but there were musicians on the battlefield. Is there a technical name for those?
Yeah, the drummers, the bugle corps. It was how they kept the marching pace and stuff like that. It was to keep tempo. And remember, battles were fought a little differently at this time. They were very much you try to keep pace. You try to keep that line unbroken. And the way to do that is with a good beat. We still do that a little bit, but not as much in
Well,
modern.
that, and because we learned, which we should have from this time period, that maybe standing in a straight line with the other enemy standing in a straight line pointing guns at you is not the best from a tactical standpoint.
What's sad is we didn't really learn that till halfway through World War One, and that was because machine guns made it a little nastier. And even then, there's still battle lines of tanks and stuff like that. When it's just that's tactics. You strengthen numbers, strengthen numbers. So again, we're not a tactics military history podcast. There are plenty of those. I could do it, but I'm not going to. Thank you very much.
No, not at all.
So, all right. So, first place, our first stop on our journey is the Daniel Lady Farm. If you are wanting to visit the most just proof of how horrific things were here, of how bad things were, then you just go to this stone house, right? And the barn next to it. Basically, both buildings were used as field hospitals.
Oh, ooh.
And there's just so much evidence of the battle here because there's just blood stains everywhere on the wall, on the floor, and there's engraved initials that soldiers would just put on the walls. It's crazy. There's a lot of stuff that's, it's all been proven history. It's, it's definitely human blood and all that. And there are
So wait, because this battle was how long ago?
1867.
Okay, so there's literally blood on the wall from 1867.
Yes, that's how stained the wood got. 1863, I'm sorry, 1863. Yes, that's how stained the wood got. So,
oh, I don't love that. No, don't love that at all.
now we know at least 37 died at the farm and were later buried on the grounds. 22 of them were never able to be identified.
Oh
So their
my
families
gosh.
have no idea who they were, what they are. It is now owned by the Gettysburg Battlefield Preservation Association, and it is open for special events and tours. And one of the things that is most often reported here is you hear the screams, just the noise of people dying and wanting help and reaching out for help.
Uh,
It's
that
horrific.
hurts my heart to even think about that.
Right. Right.
Don't love that.
I don't know how else to describe it. It's one of those, that was one of the buildings that just really brought it home to me. And
Yeah.
when you're touring that. Next is the Tilly Pierce Inn. So 15-year-old Tilly Pierce, she becomes a hero in 1863 when she and other locals were kind of trapped in Gettysburg in this small crosstown as the battle rages around them, right?
Uh-huh.
Tilly kept a journal giving basically lets us know what happened. That's an amazing read. Even though she's just a teenager, she's dressing wounds. She's carrying water and basically comforting the wounded. And so here's a note from her journal. Nothing before in my experience had ever paralleled the sight we then and there beheld. There were the groaning and crying, the struggling and dying, crowded side by side, while attendants sought to aid and relieve them as best we could. Now, the Tilly Pierce Inn is now a bed and breakfast, and the Blue Room is said to be haunted by soldiers that Tilly took care of. That was her room that she was helping take care of people. Now,
Okay.
the story I got most recent, and this is multiple people have reported this many times, is when they stay in the Blue Room and they might be the only guests in the hotel or the bed and breakfast at the time, they'll hear footsteps coming up and down the stairs, and they'll even see a shadow of someone walking through the hall. And they'll go down the next morning and say, "Oh, I thought we were the only people staying." They're like, "You were." The one email we got was that they were convinced that someone was on patrol because it was like marching up and down.
Oh, wow.
Now we have a couple other people who said they did see the ghost of a little girl sitting at the foot of their bed, a young lady, trying to make sure it's okay. It's okay. You can go back to sleep. You're going to be okay.
Wow. That's just
Uh,
crazy. Wow.
yeah. Now, probably the most famous ghost and probably one of everybody's favorite haunted places is the Jenny Wade house. And this is one I've kind of historically, I think is a little different than what history notes, right?
Okay.
The Jenny Wade house is the site of the only civilian death during the Battle of Gettysburg. Jenny
I
Wade,
was like, well, weren't all civilians included in the Battle of Gettysburg, but
they
okay.
were all in the town, but this is the
Yeah.
only one who got hit. When I first went to the Jenny Wade house, gosh, it was an early tour. I was a kid in West Virginia. We all went to Gettysburg. We'd go to Gettysburg and Washington, D.C. every year for history trip. I don't know. We just get on a Greyhound bus and go. Gosh, I had to be like 7 or 8 the first time we went. And it didn't make sense to me at the time. It's like, oh, we're just in this old building. Now, this poor girl was in the kitchen and a stray bullet hits her and kills her. And they
Oh,
swear it was a Confederate sharpshooter from this one building, the Cashtown Inn, a couple miles away, and shot her when it was probably shooting at somebody else. That would be a miracle shot to have done what they say. That's the common story, is she was hit by this Confederate sniper. But I don't know. I don't buy that.
I was gonna say I would be. I mean, that is a 1 in a billion shot
Yeah,
because
because it's
those
literally like
guns,
a half mile away, and
yeah, were not that accurate.
if they were shooting a girl, that was against.
There's nothing they
Yeah,
gain from that. So let's go
no,
with that's probably
yeah,
not what happened.
yeah. Now, when you do go into this place, though, there was a sudden rush of cold air that I felt when I was a kid. And
Okay.
so going back recently, this was still a number of years ago, but not that long ago. I still got that same feeling and that same rush of cold air, but I didn't get it till I went up to the second floor
Okay.
this time. And when you go into that cellar, you kind of get just this little small cramped cellar, and that's where you realize that's where she was taken, and the whole family kind of had to cramp up down here and kind of sit with her body, just waiting for the shooting to stop.
Oh, Aaron, I got
Yeah,
the heebie-jeebies again. No, I
yeah.
don't love this. Why am I in this machine? Why am I back in time doing this with you? This seems like a terrible plan.
All
I don't
right.
know why
So
I got in the Wayback Machine today.
I don't
Seriously.
know, but the Jenny Wade house is available for, they even do after hours ghost tours
Oh,
because it's
wow.
famous now. So, and house tours are always available.
You gotta love that.
No, so I did mention the next location. I mentioned it before we started here, right there. And that's probably the one place I had one of the craziest experiences at Gettysburg, and that is the Cashtown Inn. It's
Okay.
probably one of the most famous historical buildings in Gettysburg, and it's also probably noted as one of the most haunted locations in Gettysburg. Uh,
Okay.
Built in 1797, and it was used as a tavern and an inn, right? And it was the first stagecoach stop in Gettysburg when the turnpike came through in 1813. So before the Battle of Gettysburg, the guy who ran the shop, this guy named Jacob Mickley, and he saw the Confederates coming in. And his famous quote was, "The entire force under Lee passed within 20 feet of my bar room." Now, of course, the inn gets converted in the battle. Upstairs was used for snipers. They boarded it up so they could fire out, but it was also a hospital on the first floor. And
Oh.
that's where it gets its haunted lore, right? Because apparently, famously noted in one of the journals, was the amputated limbs were piled so high that sunlight could not enter the building.
Oh. Ew.
Yeah.
Ew. Yeah. No, first of all,
Yeah.
that's terrible for all the people, but secondarily, What just hit me was what that must smell like.
Exactly.
Oh, no.
It's a,
Hard pass on that smell.
well, it's a bed and breakfast now.
Oh God.
And that's where I stayed. And while we were there, we heard knocking at our door at about 2 in the morning. And I got up and was like, well, what's going on? I wonder, something wrong. We need to get up. Nobody there. No
Wow.
footsteps, no nothing. And I was like, something I didn't understand just happened. I still get goosebumps from that. Laid back down, didn't hear much else. But some of the other people were asking that we're staying there, were saying, did you hear knocking last night? I thought I heard somebody marching through the hallway. And I was like, I got up because I heard knocking, but I didn't go out in the hall.
Well, at least you did the Erica thing of not going out in the hall. The
Well,
other
I just,
Erica thing
I
would
was
have been
tired.
turning on the TV super loud so I didn't hear the knocking because I could hard pass on that as well.
From what I understand now, it's no longer a bed and breakfast. It is just a restaurant, but you can rent the rooms for specific, if very occasionally. So you have to reach out and see if you can, because they still offer them as available places to stay. Now, famously, one of the episodes of Ghost Hunters with Jason Hawes and them stayed at the Cashtown Inn, and they got some strange knockings and footsteps and stuff like that. So just a very cool place to visit, and I would highly recommend it.
Well, look, Mark got haunted by something. I
Yeah,
love
it was an
that.
odd experience. Like I said, I still don't like to say it was a ghost. It was just an echo, a stone tape of some sort. So we'll do one more bed and breakfast, all right, before we move on.
Well, Mark, I think probably what would be good is we've got to take a break in a moment here. But I have a question
All
before
right,
the break for
before
you.
the break.
Because I know that you are sensitive to things, even though you don't talk about it as much, you are sensitive to things. So, going into these places that you're talking about staying, did you have anything happen when you were a kid at the other place?
I don't remember it specifically. I think something like that would stand out. I remember seeing what looked like a Confederate soldier that looked like almost like a photo negative, like a black and white, you could almost see through him type thing. And he just kind of was there. And I didn't put two and two together that he shouldn't be there, because I was 8 or 9 years old at the time. And that was at Battlefield location. And he was standing next to some trees. And I just didn't put it together in my little head. Now I still see it in my mind's eye. I can remember that. But when I go into these buildings and things like that, my sensitivity is not, I'm not like a full medium and I can talk to the spirits and all that. I just know, I get a vibe, right? It's one of those, the hairs in the back of your neck stand up. You get a little more in tune to this stuff. I think once the door opens, you've had some experiences, you do feel it a little, you know what to watch for. I think everybody gets it. I think people just ignore it or choose to ignore it. Some people are more sensitive to the cold. Some people are more sensitive to high pitched noises. Some people, certain smells, and some people, cilantro tastes like soap. It's a weird science thing that we haven't figured out yet. That's what I think this is all is. And that's all I can say about it. It's preternatural stuff we don't understand yet.
That's true. And you keep saying one thing that last thing I want to cover before our break is we say stone tape a lot, and we know what that means. But just real quick for those that don't, especially in a place that had this much death, right?
Right.
There are certain attributed things to potentially certain individuals that were stuck in an area, but like random Confederate soldier X by a tree that a kid sees, what is a stone tape?
It's a theory that, if you're suddenly stopped, like if you die unexpectedly, if you're not ready to go, if you just get cut off, you imprint that energy onto the ground around you, the rocks around you. It could be specific building materials around you. That's something we don't understand. And that's why we see the repeater ghosts, right? The things that just seem to be oblivious to us and just keep doing the same thing over and over again. We get that moment of death or that moment of pain or whatever. It could just be, or a moment of happiness, like just a moment where they helped somebody, or a moment of joy. That same energy is just there and it just replays. And some people can pick it up, some people can't. And there's an amazing movie called The Stone Tape that Nigel Keel came up with. He did the Catermass movies and a bunch of other science stuff. Big British production guy, but he came up with this brilliant idea that what if this was something that just recorded onto the rocks? And so if we could scientifically study it, maybe we'd figure it out. And maybe we figure out which rocks do it and which rocks don't and all that. So that's why it's often called stone tape theory. It came from that. It was actually a Fortean. Charles Fort came up with it too. It was a Fortean theory, and it goes way back, but that's why we call it stone tape. It's a lexicon term for ghost hunters and things like that, for not a active spirit, not one that can talk to you, not one that you can reach out with a Ouija board or knock 3 times if you can hear me or say my name. It's a little different. So
That's true. And with that, here is a word from our sponsors.
Destiny Beard, the lyrical soprano who will haunt your dreams. With her alluring melodies and intricate harmonies, this dark siren of wistful song shall capture your soul and lead you into the night. Check out Destiny's new single, The Haunting Is Over, with international musicians Sam Haines and Gary Bennett, as well as her other musical works at destinybeard.com.
the sweltering heat of the Florida sun breaks as a chill runs down your spine. A dark shadow looms from a nearby tourist trap. You didn't expect to find this kind of shade in Florida. If only there was some sort of travel guide to steer you through the spookier locales. Well, you're in luck, reader. Join author Mark Muncy and Carrie Schultz as they lead you through the darkest locations in the Sunshine State in creepy Florida. Available from History Press and at fine bookstores everywhere. We're back.
We are back, and we are still in the Wayback Machine. For the record, Beau has eaten all my
We're
snacks.
kind of in it. We're kind of in and out of the Wayback Machine because I'm talking about them now as well as then.
That's
So
true, but again, Beau ate all the snacks. So I'm just saying
Again?
they need to be better
well,
loaded
all the
next time.
beaver nuggets are already gone. Oh my gosh.
Keep saying beaver nuggets.
I should have got some peach rings, but Carrie eats all those. So
That's true. That's true.
all right. So next place is another bed and breakfast. It's the Gettysburg Academy. It's one of the oldest and most historic buildings in Gettysburg. And it's really just now recently going, hey, there's money in ghosts. We should talk about the ghosts that are here, because before this, they pretended like, nope, no ghosts here. Everywhere else in Gettysburg, but not here. But now they're going, oh, hang on a second. Yeah, we should probably talk about some of the weird things that happen here. The Academy got its name because it was an educational facility in Gettysburg for over 200 years. And it was also used as a Civil War hospital during the battle.
I feel like everywhere was either a battlefield or a hospital. I feel like that's what
or an
hurt.
office, right? Or an office building
Yeah.
for one of the opposing armies and stuff like that. But that's after the battle. There were so many dead and so many dying that it literally were days. They just had to leave them there because there was not enough people to go get them and bury them and put them places. And so there was just nothing you could do. You were literally for days listening to men help, calling for their mother, calling for whoever. It's hard to imagine. Now, this one, there's a shell, an artillery shell lodged in the bricks of it that didn't explode.
That doesn't sound like a good thing, and they haven't removed it.
They haven't, it's dead. So it literally is not going to explode, but the shell is still there. The casing is still there. So that's just how close to the battle this was. And there's one particular ghost that is seen here, and we think it's actually nothing to do with the battle. It's actually one of the old students here that tends to walk over to one place on the wall and sign his name. And there is a signature on the wall right there.
So it keeps signing its name there over and over again?
Over again, but the signature is there. It's like it's going to sign its name, and the signature is on the wall, and it's hard to read, so no one's been able to really decipher it. But that's just one of the famous ghosts here. And now they do allow ghost investigations, but they only allow them 1 day a year. You guess what day a year they let them go?
Halloween.
Halloween.
When you should, when the veil is the thinnest between the realms.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did it in that voice, but that was for all you travelers out there.
Okay, so the next one's for you, Erica. This is the Farnsworth House, and it's a bar.
Perfect. Done. I can drink
yeah.
away the haunt.
Yeah.
We should make that a phrase. Drink away the haunt.
Drink away the haunt. Drink away with the spirits. Yes. So it's a restaurant and a bar. They do bed and breakfast options many times during the year. It is a very popular ghost hunting site. So from the cellar to the attic, right? This place, they even have this one great setup there called the Mourning Theater, Mourning, with an antique coffin. The upstairs window is possibly where the Confederate soldiers shot Jenny Wade. Sorry, I got it confused. I kept thinking it was Cashtown Inn. It was this one, but supposedly. And again,
I'm going to veto that decision on the Eerie Travels podcast because I do not agree with that ridiculous notion that occurred. So moving on.
Yeah, I got them confused. Sorry, gang. My epilepsy brain got those two places confused. So, but Farnsworth House, well, I love the coffin set up there. I thought that was pretty cool. But people hear strange noises all the time, usually up in the attic, and then singing coming from the basement. That's the odd thing. And they hear the Confederate soldiers running around upstairs, loading ammo, other things like that. But the singing is what gets me.
Did they have a glee club?
Who knows? At the time, it might have, but and guess what? It was also used as a hospital at one point during the bout.
Don't love that.
Next house, the Dobbin House. Now, this is
okay. Real quick, they can't decipher the signature.
They can't decipher the signature at the academy.
Well, see now
they've got a few theories on which student it is.
Okay, Malfoy. Just kidding. Go ahead.
Dumbledore. Now, the Dobbin House, you look at it from a distance, and it's stone, and it looks like it's been around for forever. It looks like almost pre-Revolutionary War, let alone Civil War. It was also a stop on the Underground Railroad.
Oh.
And of course, a hospital in the aftermath of the battle. But it had a secret room where slaves used to hide. Now, this one does have blood splatters, but they disappear and reappear.
Oh, I don't like that even more than the ones that are just there. I don't know.
They clean them and they come back.
No, don't like
now,
that.
It is a fine dining establishment now, and also serves as a bed and breakfast occasionally. But the ghosts here have seen like a young, frightened, looks like an African-American girl looking scared, like she's watching the battle from a window. And that's, if you think hiding out from the Underground Railroad and then suddenly Confederate troops are marching past your house, you're in the North, you should already be almost free. And suddenly see that? Yeah,
that would be terrifying. Just period. That entire situation is terrifying. But I think it's really interesting when it's so defined like that.
Yeah. This one is so famous, a local television crew actually caught her, they think, on footage. I just remember it was a really good place to eat. I don't remember exactly. I just remember I had a really good burger there. So
okay, so outside of having the crap scared out of you, you can have a good burger.
Little Eerie Travels tip. Go eat at the Dobbins House. So, all right. You and I love the Headless Horseman, right?
Oh, we do. This podcast is a fan of the Headless Horseman.
All right.
Who loves the Headless Horseman?
What's the iconic location of the Headless Horseman?
Well, I would think that would be Sleepy Hollow, but I'm guessing that's
the covered bridge, right? The covered bridge.
Yes.
Well, this is the Sachs covered bridge, which is known as the Haunted Sachs covered bridge. So there you go. How's that? That's even in its name.
I appreciate that. I also am not a fan of going over anything where I could plummet to my death that is, and I quote, haunted.
Well, this basically was crossed by the retreating Confederate army It was also the site of a public hanging of 3 deserters from the Union.
Ooh.
And so those who visit the bridge report seeing apparitions. A lot of smelling of cigar smoke, hearing voices. And this is one of those tactile locations where people feel something brush against them, like soldiers marching past them and stuff like that.
Wow. So what is the cigar smoke? Was smoking cigars a common thing back in
Pretty
those times?
generally the officers and generals, because the rank and file couldn't afford them, particularly
I
the
can
Southern
understand
soldiers.
cigarettes and
This was
pipes.
way before cigarettes. You got to remember, this is everybody's hand rolling their own stuff,
So,
using leaves and their own fresh tobacco and stuff from the Southern farms and stuff.
well, just so you know, North Carolina, where we're located, was very well known for tobacco.
Yes, both sides love their smoke. So
Of their tobacco. Okay, well,
Yep.
that's interesting.
so now the Gettysburg Hotel, located right on Lincoln Square in downtown Gettysburg. It's a 4-star hotel, has a restaurant, bar, and lounge. It dates back to 1797 when it started as a little tavern. And basically during the 1890s, after everything is over, it was built into the Gettysburg Hotel. Now, the most famous ghost in this area is a ghost of a lady named Rachel. Now, Rachel was supposedly a nurse during the Battle of Gettysburg, and she's supposedly still seen in that area, in that hotel, walking around. There's a couple other Union soldier ghosts that are seen in this building. Now, what's cool about it, and not a lot of people know about this, so this is our little Eerie Travels tip. The hotel was also once a bank, and the vault is still located in the ballroom. And one of the paranormal investigations that I was there with, the vault, they found it to be the most active site. No one really knows why, because we were expecting the nurse, we were expecting the Union soldiers. The vault, for some reason, was where all the EMF devices were going off, all the EVPs were being recorded. It was something major went down there in that vault sometime, we think, in the 1930s.
Well,
not sure, but Prohibition era probably.
I
So
was
not
going to
really
say
what you
there are
expect.
so many things that could happen in an I don't know, airtight metal room that
Yeah.
don't end well.
Exactly, right?
So yes, travelers, let's make a list of the things that would not end well in a enclosed metal space
All right.
without air conditioning or any other sort of ventilation.
So I'm gonna say one of the most famous ghost stories. This one's in a bunch of books, but we would get some flack if we don't mention this one. So this is at Pennsylvania Hall at Gettysburg College. The story goes that it's a college now, and it at one point served as a field hospital for both Confederate and Union soldiers. Everybody was just being dragged here, and the doctors were doing what they could for anybody. And these 2 college employees push the button for their floor, and somehow the elevator just takes them all the way to the basement. No reason, just goes to the basement. And when the
I don't
doors
love that.
open,
That's how a horror movie starts. That's like the first ending death scene in almost any horror movie that involves an elevator. Is you walk in, you hit the button, and it doesn't take you to where you want to go. I don't like
Right.
that. No.
Exactly. And that's what happens is when the door opens, they see basically a Civil War operating room with doctors just working frantically trying to save soldiers. And
Ew.
they're, the smell hits them, like you said, just all that. And then suddenly a doctor looks up and sees them. And then just as soon as he starts coming towards them, the doors close and they go up. They get a security guard and they run. They go, quick, we got to go downstairs. Something weird's going on. Everything was fine.
Ooh, dimension
Normal.
shifting. Ooh, I
Yeah.
don't love that.
Now, this is a famous story. It's told on every ghost tour I've ever been on there. It comes from a book of Ghosts of Gettysburg. I've never been able to experience that or anything, but that's the story. And it's told often enough that it's one of those that's made the rounds. We'd get some flack if we didn't mention it. So
Well, and here's the thing. That doesn't sound like, I encountered this one nurse ghost or something like that. This is, we talk a little bit about dementia. It seems the preternatural something different, because walking in on an entire scene unfolding is very different than encountering a singular spirit generally, or a group doing one thing. I guess like the bands marching and stuff that we talked about,
Yeah.
a little bit on the battlefield. But anyway, that is fascinating. I don't want to encounter that ever. Thank
All
you.
right. So this next place you're going to hate, but we got to stop by it on our little Eerie travel here. And that is the Homestead Orphanage.
Oh no, I already don't like the name of that. No,
Yeah.
why do we have to go there? I'm getting back in the Wayback Machine. I don't want to go there. No.
Okay. So Beau, you and I will go there. During the Battle of Gettysburg, this was used as a headquarters for Union General Howard, but that's not why it's haunted. In 1866, afterwards, it was turned into an orphanage, and it housed over 130 boys and girls because of all the people orphaned by the Civil War. And Rosa Carmichael was the headmistress, and she would go on to be convicted of child abuse a short time later.
Oh,
Yeah. The
no.
orphanage was closed in 1877. We're not sure exactly how bad it was, but the word torture was used in her trial. There is a dark spirit here that it terrified me. I couldn't stay in the building. And there,
Hey, Beau, you went with him there. I'm just saying, like,
yeah,
why would you
and
do that?
now the
Get
question
back in the Wayback Machine
is
with
it the children, or was there something, are the ghosts of the children there? Something darker there? I don't know, but that is just, it's a terrifying place. And we might have to do a deep dive on it, but I don't want to. It's that bad for me. All right.
I appreciate that you said that, because
All right.
yeah.
So now we'll go out to the battlefield proper. We've got to visit a couple places here. So most famous place you're going to go, and it just reopened. They had it blocked off. They've added some extra parking now, so you can go visit. And that is Devil's Den. And basically kind of the nearby triangle, the triangle, they call it the triangular field. People have seen sharpshooters, Confederate sharpshooters, and hearing the infamous rebel yell, and you'll hear those drum beats, the marching drum beats. We've had numerous people reporting to us of seeing Civil War soldiers in this area. We had that one recent listener story of the guy who was at the reenactment, and the Confederate soldier landed in front of his Union clad buddies. It was in this area.
Oh,
right?
wow.
And people just think, oh, it's reenactors out for a stroll, and then they just disappear from sight. And
Wow.
My camera wouldn't work in this area the last time I was there. And that seems to be common in this area. Sometimes batteries just die. Sometimes things weird. It is incredible when you're there and you just realize how, man, the Devil's Den is a pile of rocks, right? It's just a crazy rock formation. And you'd think the name Devil's Den, right? That's got to be from Gettysburg. No, it predates Gettysburg. And it's not, this is one of those devil's places that wasn't named after, the devil's courthouse. This is where the devil's tree, the devil's chair. This was named after, they think, some children were trying to catch this little fox or some sort of animal in there. And he was a wily devil. So they called it the Devil's Den, because this is where he lived in the cracks of the rocks. They couldn't catch him. So
That is hysterical, because that is the cutest reason to name something devil anything on the planet.
Yep.
So
But now it's got, of course, it's one of the most infamous places where so many died in such a terrible, terrible fashion, right? So we've got one more fun place I think you'll like, Erika. This is the Battlefield Brew Works.
I'm on board. We were drinking at the last stop, which is the only
Yeah,
reason I got
figure
through all the
we got-
rest of this one. So
Got you back to this one. This is the perfect place to go after your ghost hunts, right? It's open late. 1,300 soldiers were taken through the property because it became the largest Confederate field hospital in the
of
area.
course, you just ruined
Yeah.
this for me. Go ahead.
Yeah. When the Confederates retreated after the battle, they had to leave over 400 soldiers here for a month because they were too seriously injured to be moved.
Oh,
47 died here and had to be moved later to a Confederate cemetery. But the most haunted spot in the building is one I'm not allowed in. Only you and Beau could go into because it's the women's room.
So great. So I have to go drink and I can't pee. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not going. I'm not going
Because
if I can't pee where I'm drinking.
there are spirits in the women's room that supposedly are seen in the mirrors of old soldiers, old nurses. It was apparently where they all washed up for the battle and stuff. So,
Oh, I don't. Yeah. Oh, Beau. Oh, Beau's like, we'll go pee together. So there's two of us that can get haunted. I am going to outrun you, Beau. We already know that. So we have my entire theory about outrunning my friends. I'm fine. Okay. Creepy
all right.
bathroom stories.
All right. So, last place, we've talked about all the fun, crazy places, the Jenny Wade house, the children's orphanage, General Lee's
Can we not
headquarters.
put the word fun in front of that? How about we've talked about all the very spooky, haunted, terrible things happened places.
All right. So, General Lee's headquarters is now a museum. It's got ghosts. There's some other places I could go, deeper into this. The National Cemetery is there, and that's hundreds and hundreds of 4,000 Civil War graves there. So of course it's a focal point for paranormal.
That may or may not be haunted with that much.
Yeah, exactly. And again, as you and I are some of those people where we talk about, I don't always think cemeteries are the most haunted places because people didn't die there usually.
No, I find a lot of times
Here
it's
they
more,
did.
I think a lot of cemeteries are because it also depends on whether or not the mortuary was on premise, but if it was a family cemetery, those tend to be creepier. But anyway,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, the area that I think is the most, there's this place called the Copse of Trees. It's basically the Copse of Trees, and it's the site of Pickett's charge during Civil War, and it's called the Angle. And that's because it was literally just a corner of two places. And it was basically, after the battle, a series of burial pits just to get all the bodies out of the way. Now, the bodies have been moved. They are no longer there. They are now in the cemeteries around. But the burial pits, however, are still there. And I feel that area the most when I'm there. You go up to Little Round Top, probably one of the most historical, significant places. And I definitely would not have been on the end that marched Hood's troops trying to march up there. I can't imagine, and all that. But the Angle is just one of those places. My God, so many died there, and in such a short period of time, and you can feel it. It hits you to your core there.
Wow.
I have one last one for you, Erika, and that is Spangler's Meadow. And this is where,
like the Ghostbuster?
kind of like, not Spangler.
Oh, okay, that's okay, travelers. I
One
just want to know
vowel.
if you heard the difference there, because that was like the Vanilla Ice dun
All
dun
right.
dun 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 dun. But continue on.
But Spangler's Spring, there is a woman in white
Oh,
that some people think might be a nun. Some people think it might have been one of the nurses.
I
but
just think she's a woman in white, and whatever those
be a
actually
woman in
are.
white, whatever that phenomena is. But she searches this battlefield looking for something. She searches this part of the area. She has been seen so many countless times. I literally have pages of documented encounters of her in this area, always searching around this area. It was a Union area that a lot died in. So just one of those crazy stories.
Well, I appreciate you not putting a name to her, because I
We don't know.
personally feel these women in white are something completely different. Don't know what they are, but yes, thank you for ending on that one.
I thought you'd be happy with that. So it is basically incomprehensible, the amount of death and suffering over 3 days, right? I can't put that into words. I don't think anybody's put that into words. People have tried for generations to describe this. Ken Burns' documentary, it's 5 parts. 1 part is just Gettysburg. Now the rest is the whole war. And then the famous book series movie, that incredible movie, probably one of the most incredible battlefield movies of all time, even though it was made for TV, so there's no blood, but it's still pretty, pretty crazy, impressive, and a huge cast. Definitely was not meant to be watched in HD. Otherwise, the fake beards and mustaches would have been a little better done. But it still holds up. I highly recommend it. So that'll be something we'll put in the comments. You can plan a watch, but go to Gettysburg. It's incredible. There's so much history there and so many amazing places to visit. And go up to Little Round Top, the new monument there. It looks amazing. Just opened literally right before the anniversary. So I've just gotten some recent photos, so we're excited. We're going to try to go swing by there on our way up to Squonk in a few weeks.
Yes. Woo to Squonk.
Well, we might have to hit some of the Gettysburg museums and maybe a quick tour of the battlefield on our way. But gang, it's a must do. It's up there as one of the most haunted towns in America. So,
and it sounds like you could take a few days and just stay at several haunted Airbnbs and eat at several haunted restaurants. And I'm sure we haven't even hit the tip of the iceberg of all the absolutely terrifying Gettysburg things you can do. So on this day after the 4th of July, for freedom, for independence, and for very spooky ass shit.
Yeah. So I would highly recommend After Dark Investigations. They're one of the great ghost tours there. They do a few tours. They even have a 3-hour tour. It's like $50.
You go to Gilligan's Island?
Yeah, kind of like that, a 3-hour tour. There is one just called Gettysburg Ghost Hunt with equipment. So they actually bring equipment for you. The Spirits of Ginny Wade is a night ghost tour, and that actually starts at the Ginny Wade house. So that one's pretty popular. And then for small groups, I highly recommend Devil's Hour Investigations. They were really great, and they do midnight tours.
Ooh.
So if you really want the late night tours, they're one of the ones
the
that
witching hour.
They have the late night tours. Now, if you want kind of an all ages and a bit more history on your thing, there's one called Echoes of War, and it's kind of family friendly, but it still gives you the history and stuff like that. So,
well, we'll put all the links as we always do in our show notes. So if you travelers want to check out any of these locations, if you have a beer or a drink at any of the bars we talked about, please make sure you send a picture in to us. You could do it on our website, on our contact us form, and we'd love to hear your Gettysburg ghost stories. So,
please.
Mark, with that, you want to take us away, my friend?
I will say one of the best things about this, when you do go to Gettysburg, and you've always heard of the Gettysburg Address, right? And when you actually see the Gettysburg Address and you realize how short it is, people hand you it and you're like, am I missing pages? No, it's like 3 paragraphs. It's incredible. And so when you do go there, just remember that happened a few days later, and he scrawled it out on a pencil on the train ride there, and it'll stir you to your core. So, and one of the lines from that is the line I'll leave you with, which is no foreign power could ever drink from the Mississippi. No foreign power would ever be able to step 1 foot on the Blue Ridge. The problem is to come. It must rise up from within us. And so with that, gang, we'll see you on the other side.